All right, so we'll call the meeting back to order. Which brings us to item 8C, request for decision, Range Road 243 drainage assessments. Who will speak? Mr. Timotician, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yep, we're good.
Perfect. So thank you. I'm here today to provide an update on the Range Road 243 drainage assessment. The original report came to council on August 25th. At that meeting, council directed administration to bring back next steps and costs associated to address the overland drainage concerns to this evening's meeting. Just like to point out a few things during that original meeting on August 25th that was discussed. So we looked at items regarding legislation, constraints within the area, how the overland drainage basin worked, regional initiatives, and other information was provided into how that system worked throughout Beaumont related to drainage, and how the LeBlanc Canal and Irvine Creek were key pieces of infrastructure related to those properties. As a result of that report and further assessment, administration was able to determine that there are feasible options to move forward with to potentially address seasonal drainage concerns and flooding that has been brought forward by applicable landowners. As you'll see in options 1 in particular, administration is recommending that there is the potential to do debris removal, minor landscaping work that would fall within the Water Act and applicable legislation that would forego the need for formal approval through Alberta Environment. Details are included within the report. If this work is completed in that manner, work related to that drainage course that was viewed and detailed out on August 25th would be able to take place this year, and cost estimated would be in the realm of $15,000 to complete that work. I'd also just like to point out, just as a general commentary with drainage related to these natural drainage courses, these aren't, while they are protected through Alberta Environment and generally require extensive studies and approvals to do the work, as pointed out just a few minutes ago, we can complete the minor clean out and debris removal within the legislation. These aren't drainage courses that are registered. They're on private property. They cross numerous properties. They aren't maintained by the City of Beaumont at this time, or have they been in the past. So doing any work within those natural drainage courses would potentially set a precedence moving forward in regards to other natural, whether they were naturally existing from the past and man-made created on rural farmland, and potential flooding concerns that could come forward or have come forward in other areas of the municipality. The work that's being proposed does include multiple landowners as stated here, and would require permission to access those lands. Notification has been sent out to those landowners and initial communications have occurred, and so far positive feedback has been obtained in regards to accessing key parcels of land directly west of the landowner that brought forward the concern. I am available to answer further questions in regards to those options presented within the report at this time.
Appreciate your presentation tonight. It's a great body of work with 2 really good options. Open it up to questions from members of council. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Mr. Timotician. Thank you for your presentation. If you may assist me, if you could, attachment number 2, existing drainage area map, the option 1 that is most cost effective, and I think will have a result that we're looking for. Can you kind of explain just from the attachment 2 where this work will actually take place in terms of visually on the map itself? I'm trying to picture where the existing landowners concerned with the RV park is on this map, and where the foliage will be removed as you suggested, going through various landholders' locations, please. Just a brief description would be helpful. Thank you.
Just for everybody's reference, we're on page 65 of 82 of the package. Mr. Timotian?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. If you look on attachment 2, it doesn't show the drainage course exactly that we were referring to. However, the best reference point would be in the southeast corner of that map. There's it looks like an X in blue. If we go just west to that first property line that runs north-south, that's where there's the drainage course that runs from Highway 625 north. It ends up bending to the west, where you'll see in blue another existing low-lying wet area, and then it continues to the west and heads north into the 80 acres that is currently owned by the City of Beaumont lands that is pointed up on the map, and it intersects that low-lying wet area on the map, and from there continues further north and to the east across 50th Avenue. So the area that we're specifically looking at doing the work, or at least proposing to do the work according to the recommendation, is directly west of the area in blue, that X area, right along that, or west of that property line to the RV park that was being referred to.
Oh, you good? All right, Councillor Munkoff Swain, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Mr. Timotian, can you just provide, you mentioned option 2, can you just confirm for me, you say the plan would cost approximately $75,000 to $100,000. Can you just confirm that is just to get the assessment done, and any work on top of that would be additional? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, Your Worship, through to Councillor Munkoff Swain. That estimated cost is in relation to do an overall drainage assessment for the entire area, the drainage basin, which would include the Irvine Creek, the Ball Canal. That estimate does not include any physical work being completed.
So we would have spent 75 to 100K without achieving anything physically on the ground yet.
Correct.
Okay. Follow-up question. I recognize the concern here with this particular landowner. Has administration, and sorry to put you on the spot, but has administration done any assessment of other potential areas that may, or landowners that may come to council with similar concerns, and then all of a sudden, here we go again? I guess the concern is around potential precedent setting for any of these options that we're looking at here.
Yes, Your Worship, through to Councillor Munkoff Swain. There definitely is that potential concern of other landowners coming forward in the past, and as of recent, post preparing this request for decision, there have been other landowners that have come forward, unlikely tied directly to this report by any means from an information perspective, but just inquiring, looking at their land, their drainage patterns, and these natural drainage courses within their property, of how those could be mitigated. So if the city were to proceed forward and complete work at our cost to correct these concerns or try to improve these concerns by cleaning these natural pathways out, we could put ourselves in the position to entertain multiple requests. And if you look into the annexed area, these rural pre-development type of properties that are natural, some of them are low-lying, have numerous drainage courses that are within them, cutting through them, whether they're protected or not from a right-of-way perspective, such as the LeBlanc Canal or Irvine Creek that we referred to earlier. We definitely could put ourselves in a position that we are facilitating essentially private work on private property. The unique case potentially in this scenario is it does involve multiple landowners, which does make it potentially more difficult for the landowner that brought forward the concern, as they are not in any way in direct control of making improvements to that natural drainage course. So definitely, I think that was part of the request of why it came forward to the city to look at what options were there. However, having said that, it doesn't change the the principles that it would be, work completed within those private residences, and the work that can be completed is minimal in nature, going back to the recommendation that we can't disturb the bed of those drainage pathways without those studies that were being referred to in other options.
Follow up? Or you
Yeah,
good?
thank you. Perfect explanation. My concern here is around precedent, but I'll hold my discussion for after.
Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Hendricks.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I'll maybe ask the first one and then pause and then come back to the second. It's a comment followed by a question. It seems to me like if council supported the vegetation vegetation management option, that we're actually setting up a situation where this is going to become ongoing work, and it's going to be required to be done time after time because the vegetation grows. Doing this is a bunch of physical work. It's physically cutting this material and then physically removing and hauling it out of the ditch for the length of the ditch. So it is quite the physical process. I'm just wondering, there are tools out there that can mow ditches, and there are solutions out there that could mow ditches. So first question, and then a supplemental. Is it intended that this work would be completed by city staff, or should it be approved? Would this be contracted out or asked for contractors to provide solutions to do this work? Question for administration.
Tim Turchin.
Yes, thank you, Worship. To Councillor Van Newkirk. The intent of the recommendation was not for city staff to complete this work. It was to be contracted out. The initial clean out at this stage is all that was being proposed. As far as future maintenance or ongoing clean out, that's not what's being proposed at this point in time. What you see a lot of times in these drainage courses, no different than something through the heart of Beaumont, the LeBlanc Canal. There does need to be that ongoing maintenance to keep things free flowing, but at the same time, that natural vegetation does serve a purpose for erosion control, cleaning that stormwater as well. So there is a balance there, and we definitely try to have those, much like our storm ponds, those elements, those vegetations there. But at the same time, it does restrict and reduce that flow, and depending on the nature of that drainage course, you can have reoccurrence 3 to 5 years where you have to go in and do, let's call it, more of that major cleaning to remove the majority of that debris, silt, other types of materials that have collected within that drainage course. And then you typically are good for a handful of seasons to move forward. So that's something that we definitely have to be aware of if any work was to be done, and the land, it remains as is for the coming 5 to 10 years. This could be coming forward again.
Follow up?
Follow up, yep.
Yeah, so I guess where I'm going with this is that should this vegetation removal move ahead tonight, we are setting a precedent in that regard around taking ownership of cleaning out that ditch on an ongoing basis. So by doing it once, we're inherently committing to doing it into the future for as long as that ditch exists. That's how I would see it if I was the landowner. So my concern is how often and how many times and who's going to decide that as we move forward. There are, I'm not here to debate how we would physically remove that vegetation, but what I would say is we are, by making this decision now, opening up the conversation around Beaumont being responsible to do that, and how often would we do it. Grass grows, reeds grow. When you cut things and clean them up, they actually grow faster in some regards. So I'll leave my comments at that and maybe step back in.
Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, we of course have, shall we say, ended up with this situation as a result of an annexation. So it's kind of a one-off. The drainage course issue has been a topic that was reviewed and extensively by the previous council, and a report was completed, and actions were expected there was to be some work done. Nothing was going to be status quo as a result. As we continue to hard surface all our various areas, and drainage becomes the only way to relieve these areas that don't have stormwater management particularly attached to them, then this is the net outcome. We heard the arguments about why there's an elevated volume of water in that space, and the argument is that the property owner to the south of 625 has filled an old pond, and as a result, there's no storage capacity at that side, and as a result, the culvert gets overwhelmed as it crosses 625, and as a result, you've got a volume issue traveling not only north but also west, and as a result, we have a ditch that didn't start living its current municipal life in its current condition. It is growing in over time though, and it needs some debris removal for a cost of $15,000. You also have an individual who, under Leduc County's rules, got a development permit and should have the right to enjoy that property without fear of flooding each and every year, because it's, quote, a natural drainage course. It's a natural drainage course when the volume is reduced to where it is today. And that's what's creating the flood. That's what's creating the push. So I'm not concerned about setting a precedent. In fact, if there's more people with this same issue, I'll bring them forward. This problem needs to be dealt with. We're here to deal with problems with our citizens, not to duck them. So be happy to assist here at this time. So whenever you're ready for the recommendation, I'd be happy to make that motion.
Thank you. I will call on you when we're ready. Councillor Van Newkirk, you had a second.
Yeah, and that's actually a good segue to my second is I wonder if we've provided what the actual solution would be here. Having been to the site and looked at things with council, I think I agree with Councillor Hendricks wholeheartedly that we need to deal with these issues. And for me, it feels like the vegetation issue is just a part of the solution, and I don't know that it's the whole solution. So the precedent set would be that we continue to remove the vegetation, and if that is the air quote solution that we're willing to provide for the landowner to enjoy their property, then I think that that's the precedent we're setting in that regard. The longer term solution to this would be what a decision about, or a discussion about, or an analysis of what features on that property are actually naturally occurring, and those that have been crafted over time, or ditches that have been dug over time. Just because there's reeds in it now doesn't mean it was historically there, right? So, I know that's where the bigger study comes into effect. So, for myself, I support the vegetation removal now. What I'm questioning is that if that is the actual real solution to this problem. I don't know that it is. So for tonight, for myself, I'm very happy to support the vegetation removal option, but I fear that we haven't provided a final solution for the landowner to do that. And for myself, I feel that when we make this decision tonight, that is a commitment that we're going to be helping them out moving forward with the same regard. But I fear, if and when the vegetation removal isn't enough, the discussion will still come back to us. So those are my comments. I'm happy to support the $15,000 option tonight on vegetation removal. Thank you.
Fair enough. Councillor Hendricks, you prepared to make that motion tonight?
Yes, I do. I move that council direct the administration to proceed with option 1, debris removal, the cost of $15,000.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Moncalves-Swain.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll keep my video off just because the bandwidth here isn't great. So apologies for that. So again, my question goes back to Councillor Van Newkirk's point, and I'm certainly no expert in this, but are we solving the problem for this year? Which great. or is this something that's going to come back to us, every year? Is this every 5 years? That's what I'm concerned about here. I certainly want to make sure that we can provide every option for the landowner to use their property, but I'm trying to get a better sense of what this is. What this could potentially do for our city going forward, not just with this location, but others. So do we have any sense of cleaning it up once, how much value, for lack of a better term, that gives us?
Yes, Your Worship, through to Councillor Monkoff Swain. The way I'd put that into perspective would be when we did some extensive clean out within the LeBlanc Canal. That was completed back probably close to 7 years ago, and the second phase occurred probably a year after that. So since that time, while there's been some ongoing maintenance, and definitely that's a much different drainage course than what we're referring to here, either way, that clean out and that work that was completed did serve for at minimum 3 to 5 years in a significant way. Whether that or not that'll be the case in this situation would be something that would have to be determined. But I would suggest that any clean out that's done is definitely going to improve what the existing capacity is intended to be, the rate of flow, etc. That wouldn't compromise any other adjacent properties, because no physical changes are being made to that drainage course, which is important in this regard, as pointed out in that option. So I believe it would give an opportunity to demonstrate how that drainage course can function in its optimum state as it sits now, to monitor the results in the springtime if the work was to go forward, and determine how those seasonal conditions are working and how those property owners are affected. We know there's going to be water within the area. We know undeveloped areas do have those type of occurrences within those times and until they are developed. But to see if they're working still efficiently in that natural state and that the properties are ultimately protected would be key here. And then information could be obtained and monitored to determine what next steps, if any, are required.
Yeah, thank you. I think that answers that question perfectly for me. I think what we will get out of this is some good data, and we'll see and it'll give us a bit of time as well to look back on it. So I like option one here. The landowner clearly has major concerns here, and we need to make sure that we can ensure that within our bounds that we make sure that they can run their business. My final question would be: have we checked back in with the landowner and the thought and feedback on these options? This was initially presented to us from our landowner concern. So I'm just curious if what we're looking at approving here, if we've run those options by the landowner, if that's satisfactory, etc. So I'm just curious on feedback from the landowner.
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Monkoff Swain. We haven't had any direct contact back with the original landowner that brought forward these concerns. However, at this point, if council chooses to move forward with option one, there definitely be information provided that we are going to be completing that work for a couple of reasons, as that courtesy based on that original issue being brought forward, and two, that the work would be taking place adjacent to that individual's property. As far as feedback goes, based on conversations with that landowner going back over the summer months, the discussions that took place on site, that feedback was collected, that was utilized to further investigate potential options, which ultimately option one seemed to make the most sense with what we had to work with, the legislation that's applicable, and would go to serve that landowner's feedback and concerns to help improve the situation around their property.
Yeah, I would agree, based on my discussions at that time with the landowner, that this would certainly at least give a bit of relief for this year or the spring, and not have to worry about that. So I fully support this option in front of us, and thanks for doing all the work in the background. Appreciate it.
Councillor Danyluk?
Thank you, Your Worship. I also do support the motion as well too. I do believe it's going to give us some some relief to the landowner and do a proper job of looking after our citizens. One thing about annexation is that sometimes you annex land as a municipality, you may inherit problems from previous situations. It's like buying a house. You hope the foundation is proper in the inspection, but the inspection turns out to be wrong. You bought it, it's yours. I can't speak to the suggestion that the landowner south of 625 filled in a water pond has caused drainage problems as land spilled over into our area now, but part of our job is look after our citizens and their problems as best we can. So annexation sometimes can have issues with the baggage, if you want to call it that, but I do think we're going on the right course here. I am concerned about setting a precedent, but I do believe this situation is rather unique, being part of the annex land situation, so I'm prepared to support motion going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See no more further requests to speak, call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. So option 1, clear the debris, is passed. I do agree with Councillor Van Newkirk, though, that I don't think this may not necessarily be the end answer, which brings us to recommendation number 2, the comprehensive watershed plan and survey. I'd like to move that we bring this one back to budget, as it's a fairly large ask and should be seen in the totality of our whole budget as we move forward into the future. So discussion on the motion to bring part 2 back to budget. Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. It's always great when we can come up with a solution to help one of our residents. Which brings us to item 8D, Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center noise abatement update. Mr. Frankton.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Tonight we are discussing the cooling tower that is at the Beaumont Sport and Rec Center. We have had 3 complaints from residents on 63rd Street, which is directly east of the Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center. And this occurred during the commissioning and testing of the cooling tower and ice plant around July 20th. We went through Clark Builders and the mechanical sub on the project to discuss options around dampening of the sound, what has worked in other municipal settings where there is residential properties around the area. We did get some third-party testing done just so we could get a good baseline. And our baseline was actually lower than the breakdown of the sound data provided from the original cut sheets. So the decibels right under the cooling tower were 81.7 decibels. And that's on the attachment 71 of page 82. And then the following few pages, you do see the locations within the area backing onto 63rd, where we took additional tests just to get the correct decibel reading. If we do go back to the Digital Edge cut sheet, it has those areas backing the residential backing on around that 65, in between 60, 65, which is, you know, in comparative terms, conversational speech and piano practice is the example that's given on the sheet from the third-party vendor. So then we did receive 4 options, that being a low sound fan, a whisper quiet fan with intake silencer, and a whisper quiet fan with intake and discharge silencer, varying in price point from $20,000 to $125,000. Each option would increase the sound dampening, with option 4 being the most effective from all sides. Something to keep in mind is decibel scale on the cut sheets is logarithm. It all coincides back through, but you can see each is weighted rating over goes down each option. The challenge is that the noise created by the operation of the cooling tower is a new sound to the area, and sound is both a decibel reading and perception. In the Beaumont Noise Abatement Bylaw, noise is defined as a sound in which annoys or disturbs humans or which endangers or injures the safety or health of humans. It is also determined by a peace officer, and it could constitute an offense under the bylaw. There's no identifiable decibel level threshold in the bylaw. So we have brought 4 options to discuss with council tonight. And then just knowing kind of where that baseline is with that third-party report to how we want to move forward with the residents' complaints. We have been providing updates to the residents, letting them know that the information was coming to the committee tonight for discussion. From a budgetary standpoint, the potential solutions identified are all unfunded in the 2020 budget. And if council directed, administration would proceed with one of the solutions in the 2020 as a specific funding source would need to be identified before moving forward.
Is that the completion of your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving forward to opening it up to questions from members of council. Councilor Hendricks.
Your worship, thank you. And I participated on some decks, or a deck, I guess, with some neighbors that asked me to attend behind the pathway when July date was issued for the startup of this unit. Certainly no sound ratings, no decimal gun, but certainly could hear what the complaint was. But my comment or question is more along the lines of the sound shadow that comes with this unit. And not sure who our friends at Digital Media, Edge Media are, if they've got that capability. But in my line of work, I've been given the task of creating sound shadows, depending on where our building is going compared to where a highway may be or where a industrial complex may be. And what it does is it tells you where the sound shadow goes and at what elevation it travels and what you need to offset that, either berms or trees or as you say, baffling of sound within the unit itself. So I think there's a problem. I think it needs to get resolved. The sound shadows study, which is, it's not a huge onerous step to obtain that, would give you more of a data type answer to your question as compared to somebody standing underneath the unit getting decibel readings. It's the shadow that causes the grief. So I look forward to having this back at a budget discussion, and that we could have a comprehensive discussion that surrounds perhaps a comment from Digital on whether or not they can create that sound shadow for us. It's not a very expensive item. It's not a huge undertaking, and that they can then give us a better grounding of what should be done here to just alleviate the summertime package that seems to be causing those people the most grief.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Danlock, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, if I could. On the report, on the options 1 to 4, did I miss somewhere on here where the price point is for each option on each handout? I looked at it a couple of times. I must be having a bad day. I don't see, if there is, I can't seem to see a price on option 1, 2, 3, and 4 to give us the range that was outlined in the report earlier, please.
Yeah, Your Worship, back to council. In the report, it is not identified. I'd have to pull up the file with each individual itemized options and their related price points.
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So on that, I know we had the report from the provider in terms of the decimal levels for various points of conversation. So it was very helpful to get an idea how loud things can be. We're at 81.7 decibels under the tower right now. So option 1, if I read this correctly, if we were to go with option 1 at budget time, If that's going to be the low end, the 25,000 option, I'm assuming it must be the low end, that
Correct.
option, that would lower the decibels down to 70 from 50 feet away. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that how you that?
From the
Sound-
top of the unit.
Top of the unit. Okay, so the bottom unit would be 61 and so on. Okay, thank you. That helps me explain the four options. Thank you. A secondary question, if I may, regarding sound deadening. Is there any point in discussing possibly along the diagram of points B and C along the walking path near the people's homes itself? Could we not look at doing a wall of trees to possibly help sound abatement as well? And sometimes trees are used for just blockage. Sometimes trees are used to deaden sound as well. In some subdivisions, could doing some trees along here as well help mitigate some of the sound? Is that something we had possibly considered or would consider as part of the solution?
Yes, through your worship to council. We did take the readings in various areas on that path. Some of the areas were higher treed areas than the other. And we did notice that the decibel readings were very similar, whether it had that full coverage or if it was wide open.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Newkirk?
Yeah, thank you. Myself, I've been out there too, kind of in a later evening to try and understand where the complaints are coming from. And I can definitely see where they're coming from. And I also recognize that it is a new sound to the area. So I'm happy to hear that Councillor Hendricks was suggesting that we bring this forward to budget deliberations. That's what I was going to suggest tonight, was to bring that forward. As Mr. Franklin had suggested, we don't have prices on options 2 or 3 anyways tonight. So I don't think we were armed to make that decision whether or not we were going with option 1, 2, 3, or 4 tonight. And I believe this one was just being presented as information, was it? Perhaps I'm incorrect on that, but anyways, I don't think we're armed with the information we need to make a decision on this tonight. So those are my comments right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick question for Councillor Hendricks. This study that you're talking of, the sound channel study, would that either be able to help us inform budget discussions when we're talking about what should be done?
So what it does is it takes the impact of the sound and it decides, what direction it's following. And it also tells you in terms of distance when that sound will mitigate itself. So, and then it'll tell you, what you need to offset that. And if you have to really offset it, you might need to build a wall in front of this unit, which then creates a barrier between themselves and this cooling tower, right? So it just gives you what it takes physically based on the sound shadow study. And it's a well-recognized tool for that sort of thing. I've had many experiences with them, including building a seniors lodge next to the Crowchild Trail in Calgary. The city of Calgary would not allow us to build without the sound shadow study. And so, and away we go.
Yeah, because here's the page I'm on right now. I'm thinking that probably the motion tonight is to get an estimate on that study, then bring it and all the options back to budget, and then we can see what we can do from there. I mean, we got till summertime before the residents will be using their decks again. So it's not like we have to do this immediately, but we do have to get this solved somehow. And I think that study is going to be a key piece. So prepared to make the motion to bring that study and the options back to budget?
Yeah, I think, yes, I will be happy to do that. And I think if we talk to digital media, that might be an arsenal anyway. And
Okay.
say, listen, you've got these facts so far. Could you build this shadow study for us? Bring it back. Right? So,
Okay. So moved. Councillor Stout, comments?
Thank you. Yes. Want to put the light on that? We didn't have a motion on the table. But
You do now.
all I was going to say was I'm actually just a little dismayed that given that this is marquee building, big tourist attraction in Beaumont, major effort by council and administration to bring us here, get us to this point. and it's a, yeah, like I say, a marquee building, a keynote building that I'm hoping will be, you know, the place in Beaumont for the next 25 years plus. I would kind of expected that we would have put the quietest solution that we could reasonably expect in the budget for this item. So my immediate thought looking at these options is that, you know, I picked the quietest one. I recognize that's not what we're here to do tonight. We're just to look at the options, but and to consider that at budget time if that's where we're going to go. That's definitely, I'll tip my hand straight away. That's definitely where I'm aiming, and I'm going to take some persuading that any other solution is preferable, assuming that we can't mitigate most of the sound through other measures, which may or may not be cheaper. In reference to the decibel logarithmic scale, one thing I want to stress to everybody that I know some of these reductions in sound don't look like very much on a decibel scale because, as was alluded to earlier, it's a logarithmic scale, which means that, and it's a logarithm on base 10, which means that an increase in 10 decibels is a doubling in the perceived loudness, and an increase in 20 decibels is then a quadrupling of the perceived loudness. So dropping it from, let's say, 80 to 60 means it's a quarter of the perceived loudness, which makes a big difference. I mean, it makes the difference between a vacuum cleaner and conversational speech. And that's important, I think, to bear in mind, because that's what we're looking at here. And I think we need to get somewhere into the conversational speech level.
Yeah, agree with you, Councillor, and that's what that study is designed to bring back, is to tell us what we need to do to get there. So,
yep.
Glad to hear you're in favor.
I'd certainly support that, the motion that's now been put forward to do that. Thank you.
All those see no further requests to speak. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously, which brings us to the end of our active agenda items tonight, or sorry, business items tonight. Item 9, no bylaws. We have no bylaws. Councillor inquiries and reports. Is there any member of council wishing to ask administration a question this evening? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say good job to administration for getting the Beaumont Sports and Rec Center online and dealing with questions and concerns in a timely manner. And I can say that because I've been spending hours and hours there myself with the kids and being around. And I think it's a pretty good feather in our cap. You know, when we do have items to sort out, you know, I think we see them, you know, barring this issue we just talked about, I think we see them as wrinkles rather than big problems. So that's great. One of the things I just wanted to make a comment to administration on to consider with BSRC is that on professional development days associated with the schools, it might be helpful when to anticipate those and perhaps provide some extra programming for the kids on those days. One of the things, it was a comment that was suggested to me by a couple of parents while we were hanging out at the climbing wall, watching the kids do their climbing there. So just a suggestion. I guess that has been done in some other municipalities they were aware of. I don't have awareness of this, so that's why I thought I'd bring it tonight. We know when the PD days are, and that might allow us to think of some fun things to do and advertise to families in the community. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there members of council that need to ask some questions of administration this evening? No. Is there a member of council wishing to make a statement tonight? No. Okay, I got a couple of updates. It's been an actual interesting couple of weeks at the EMRB. We had our first meeting under Mayor Choi as the new chair of the EMRB. It was a fantastic meeting. It went really well. At that meeting, vice chair was elected, and that was Mayor Alana Natu from Sturgeon County. So my congratulations go out to her. I think it's a good balance between the urbans and the rurals, which will help bring some balance back to the board. A couple of interesting projects that are about to head out to municipalities for some consultation. One is the broadband, and this is a file that Beaumont is well out in front of. But we finished the broadband study, and it basically came to the conclusion that strong broadband is going to be a major economic driver in this region. And so it's nice to see that Beaumont's taking the lead, and we have a lot of strong things to offer on this file, but the next steps are being determined. And so some of that will be coming back for your looking for opinions on what are the next steps for ourselves as a region. The next project that's coming forward that our residents will be involved in is the Regional Agriculture Master Plan, which Councillor Barnhart sits on, is coming back for engagement. They have some policies in place that they want to run by the residents of the region, from the cities, from the rurals, and get the feedback back on value-added ag and transportation and all those things. So those are a couple of updates from me going forward. Hope to continue to keep giving you guys updates. Do you have any questions for me this evening? Seeing none. CAO's update.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship, and the rest of council. I got a few items. We'll be very quick. We issued an updated issues briefing to council this afternoon, a little after 1600 hours regarding our COVID cases, and we're pleased to announce that Beaumont is now off of the watch list. We had 5 more cases recover, which brings us below 10, so we now have 9 active cases. If we hit 10, that's the watch. Again, if you recall, we had this discussion that we believe there are some clusters in there. So we fully expect, if we can make it through the next day or two, to see a significant drop in those numbers as well. The AHS map, for anybody who's looking at that, will not change color, however, because as was decided last week, we are part of the AHS Edmonton region, so that map will remain purple. The cases for the last 3 days, October 9th, 236, the 10th, 246, and the 11th, 220, with 13 people in the ICU. So those numbers are significant. Testing is significant. There are measures put in our region. While voluntary, we all need to do our part. Tax recovery, back on September 22nd, we reported that there was 22 properties that were entering the tax recovery process. We're pleased to note that 8 of those, almost half of them, have been removed from that process, so the bills have been paid. As we talked about on September 22nd, that to our knowledge, we have not ever taken a property to the auction, and we're hoping very much hoping that by December 11th, that'll be the case as well. It's quite labor intensive. The tax team is chasing people around on a quite regular basis to get these bills paid, but it's the right thing to do, and they do a good job of it. On October 11th, the Beaumont Fire Services responded to a report of a structure fire. They were able to get quick entry and extinguish a fire that was essentially, it was located in the laundry room, and they were able to keep it in that laundry room. There were 3 occupants in the home. Nobody was hurt. Damage was pretty much smoke staining. The fire crews did an amazing job on this call to limit that damage. So congratulations and thank you to that group. We have been informed by the Minister of Children's Services, Minister Schultz, that she would like to tour our early learning childcare center on or about October 26th with MLA Rutherford. He'll be accompanying the minister. An invitation will be extended to council and to the mayor. Once we get more information, we'll send that out to you, and Shima will coordinate that. And my last item is this lady to my left. This is her last council meeting for, I'm thinking, what, a couple weeks? Kendra is finished on Friday, and she's due to have a baby shortly after that. So we wish her the best of luck. Well, I didn't want people to think we fired you.
It's true, and I appreciate that.
Good.
It'd be nice to have a little more than 3 weeks off.
Oh, okay.
2020.
4 weeks then. Yeah. Now, we wish her the best of luck. Definitely a huge contributor to our team. And Ms. Darje is going to be backfilling for Kendra, and Tika is going to be backfilling for Ms. Darje. So let's get some people into different roles. So that's always exciting as well. And that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Once again, Ms. Raymond, our best wishes. Hopefully everything goes great and see you back in a year. How about a year? Hey, I got 4 kids. I know what she's about to go through. All right. Oh, well, not. All right, I was trying to be helpful, maybe not. Okay, so we have no correspondence items. Are there any notice of motions this evening? Okay, seeing none. There are no items in closed session, and therefore, once again, thank you all very much. It was great.